Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Newt News Podcast. It's myself, Andrew, this way, not the other way. And hopefully at some point we'll have Sandy with us as well. But today we wanted to dive into the Zips projections for the Cardinals going into 2024. And so we want to evaluate the batters, the pitchers, and then also at the win total that's been kind of controversial that Zips has put out. I know that people have a lot of varying feelings about how realistic the Cardinals could be in the standings there. But Andrew, obviously some relievers signed this past week. How are you feeling about things currently looking at the Cardinals team right as we're about to go into and looking into some projections?
Yeah, the Cubs signed Hector Neris for like $9 million for the next year, and I think Ottavino just re-signed with the Mets for 4.5 earlier this morning. It's not great that the Cubs got Neris. I don't want them signing more players this offseason. That's kind of not great for the Cardinals' chances of winning the Central, but I'm glad that the market has been set pretty low. I feel like we can definitely go out there and grab one of those guys for fairly cheap on a 1-year deal, and it won't cost us too much. It's not going to be multi-year. It's not going to be like the Greg Holland deal. That was probably the only bad 1-year deal I can really think of in recent Cardinals memory. So I feel like it should be good. Hopefully they act quick and get the name before everyone else gets their reliever. And I feel like knowing that they signed people after we record episodes, we're probably going to be hopping on here tomorrow to discuss how they signed like Phil Maton or
Phil
whoever.
Maton.
But yeah. But hopefully it'll happen soon. Just maybe not too soon, but yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like there's every time a reliever signs right now, people are like Mo's sitting on his hands and they're freaking out. And so until he says they're not going after a reliever after repeatedly saying they are going after another reliever, or until spring training comes around, I'm going to believe they're going to sign one of them. And there's still plenty of guys out there, Phil Maton, Ryan Brazier. There's other guys. So we'll see. But that's not the point of today. We want to talk about who's on the current Cardinals roster right now and who we believe will outperform, underperform, or true to form the projections that Fangraphs has for this year. So if we want to go ahead and turn it over there, how this is going to work is that myself and Andrew, and then hopefully Sandy at some point, we'll go through each individual player and we'll look at what Zips currently projects that player to be in 2024. And then we're going to give our opinion if we think they're going to be better, worse, or if the projection is about spot on. Zips is one of the better projection systems out there. I think Dan Zermbowski, I can never say his last name, who's the guy who kind of heads this up for Fangraphs, posted the results from 2023 the other day. And for the most part, it lines up pretty well that about half the players end up being about what they projected them to be. And then about 25% end up being better than what they thought they'd be. And about 25% end up being about worse. And so it's a pretty good projection system, as much as good as you can get when you're predicting the future about these players. But yeah, the Cardinals one's really interesting this year on both sides. And so I'm interested to hear what Sandy thinks, what I think. And then as you guys go through as well, comment if you're live on us right now, or if you're watching later, comment what you guys think in terms of the projections. But yeah, let's jump into it.
Sorry, I'll take a second to get all this stuff out of the way. Sorry about that.
Okay. I thought you kind of were going to do that while I was projecting it. It's all good.
Oh, yeah.
So if you look on Fangraphs right now, we've got it sorted by WAR, which is what they have it projected as currently. So we'll just kind of go down through. And if you're unfamiliar with how the projection systems work, you're going to see guys like Jimmy Crooks and Matt Koperniak on here. And they just kind of try to cover all their bases by saying like, hey, if for some reason the Cardinals needed Matt Koperniak to play this year as a full-time player, he'd probably make 119 games, and that's the kind of player he would be. So obviously, if you look at this, it doesn't make sense that all of these players are playing 100 games. That's not the point of the projections. They're just trying to give you an idea of what that player can produce over that amount of time. So first player on the list, they have Nolan Arenado as the projected WAR leader in 2024 for the Cardinals at about 268, 328, 454 slash line with a 111 WRC plus, which is good for about 139 games, 21 home runs, 87 RBIs. Looks like he's rebounding a little bit defensively, which is to be expected, but he's not really gaining much offensively compared to what he did in 2023. Andrew, first glance at this projection for Arenado, do you think he outperforms this, underperforms this, or do you think this is about spot on?
I feel like this projection looks a lot like what he did last year, which was really,
Yeah.
really disappointing. And I just wrote an article about how Nolan Arenado was like very upset with how last season went. He's been training really hard to make sure that just doesn't happen again. There were also some injury concerns. I think something with his back might have gone wrong at some point. And he ended the season on the IL. So I feel like I'm a pretty easy over for me as long as he's healthy. I feel like he'll outperform this projection. The defensive metrics still look like they're pretty good. It looks like Tommy Edman actually has more than him right now, but I feel like it's pretty clear over for me on Nolan Arenado.
Yeah, I'm gonna smash the over as well here. I don't think he gets back to MVP Arenado, although I wouldn't doubt it with his, or I wouldn't be shocked because of how motivated he's going to be this year. But 11% above league average at the plate feels very, very low on him. And obviously, I don't. Sometimes it's something the projections don't bake in enough. And nationally, I get it because people can't pay attention to every player all the time. But Arenado was an all-star in the first half, and he had about, I think, 130 WRC plus. He was one of the best hitters in all of baseball after a really slow start to the season too. So it's not like he was hot the whole first half. And then he's been a streaky hitter. That's kind of what he does. He gets really hot, kind of cold. But then the second half, his back really started aggravating him. They fell out of the race, and he ended up having to go on the IL, which is something he doesn't ever want to do, but it was just that bad. And he tanked in the second half. He had like an 80 something WRC plus. I think it would be crazy if he's only 11% above league average this year at the plate. I think we're looking at a guy who's 120 at most 130 WRC plus. I think he's more like an all-star again, but he's not the like MVP elite bat. So I'm definitely hitting the over here. 21 home runs in 139 games is so low. He's such a power hitter, pull hitter. There's no way he only hits 21 if he plays in that many games. So yeah, hitting the over big time on that. Do you like, from your perspective, Andrew, for him to have a season that bad, do you think it has to do more with his back's not getting better, or do you think maybe age it would be catching up to him a little bit?
I mean, he's only like 32, 33, so I feel like he might see a little bit of regression, but what we saw last season was definitely something wasn't right with him physically. And I think he mentioned that. He was overworking himself a little bit at points when
Yeah.
the team was struggling really hard. He was doing more defensive drills, and I think that took a toll on his body at some points. Hopefully he's learned from that. I think he has, because he mentioned that in his interview with Katie Wu the other day. So I feel like he should be back. And people forget that he was really disappointed with the way his 2021 season ended out for him. And like, even though he was 30 home runs, 100 RBIs, like around 800 plus OPS,
Yeah.
it was pretty solid. And he came out last season and he mashed, or 2022, he came out and mashed. So I feel like it'll be pretty similar, hopefully, in 2024 for Nolan Arenado.
It's a really good point. I like that. Okay, so second on the list, Tommy Edman would be second on the team in WAR by Fangraphs here with a 261, 316, 402 slash line, good for about 97 WRC plus. They haven't played about 144 games, giving the Cardinals about 13 home runs, 60 RBIs, 25 stolen bases. Again, they haven't been a really good defender. One of the best on the team, second to Mason Wynn or Pages, if somehow Pages played enough games. What do you think about the Tommy? I mean, I'll kind of give mine to start since you started with Arenado. I'm going to say they probably are about spot on for Tommy Edman there, especially playing every day in center field. I think that's a workload on someone, and so I don't expect his bat to take off. He's always been pretty much a league average hitter, so sure, maybe he's 102 WRC plus, but I'm not going to say he's smashing the over or anything like that. But about league average as a hitter with really good defense and a very valuable player to 3-win player makes a lot of sense to me. So I think they were pretty spot on here with Tommy.
Yeah, slightly below average offensively, kind of fits the bill for what you're going to get with Tommy Edman. And most of that WAR is coming from defense, and he's going to be really good in center field. Hopefully not playing the whole season there, but, it is what it is. Our thoughts on Tommy Edman in center field kind of vary between us. But One thing I want to know with Tommy Edman is I saw this chart the other day of switch hitters like exit velocities or bat speeds
Yeah.
when batting from different sides, and it gave the like difference between each side. And Tommy Edman was among the top in the like difference. So like when he swings from the right side, it's a lot more bat speed, and we've seen that he's a much better hitter from that side of the ball. And hopefully we could see him do something like Cedric Mullins did a couple years ago and just completely get rid of switch hitting and just hit from the right side only. We saw him do that against right-handed pitchers occasionally last season, but he experimented with. And hitting from the right side, he's definitely above average hitter. So hopefully we'll see something like that next year. But that's the only thing I wanted to know offensively with Edman.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see what his projections would be if they thought of him as a full-time right-handed hitter, but I don't think it's going to happen. I feel like we probably would have heard of it by now, but who knows? Maybe spring training week 1, we see that happen. So, okay. So third on the list, Wilson Contreras, 2.9 WAR win player, 241, 339, 427 slash line, 112 WRC plus, 18 home runs and 63 RBIs in 121 games. I'm guessing that's probably about 100 catching, 20-ish DHing by their projections. I know my opinion on this one. Andrew, what do you think? Over, under, same for Wilson?
Well, I did see what you were saying about Wilson Contreras earlier today, so I feel like I'm also smashing the over on this one.
Yeah.
112 WRC plus. I still really, really want him to be the starting catcher. I want him to catch like 100.
Which that's the plan right now. They haven't said anything else.
And in the future, like even if we lose Goldschmidt, I would rather they find another first baseman rather than stick Wilson Contreras over there. Like he'd be a fine first baseman, but it's just so much more valuable to have that offensive production coming from catcher. And with Yadier Molina coming back into the fold at some point, I would imagine he'd be around the team in the playoffs when it really matters. So like having Wilson Contreras not calling the pitches is also something that I'm very excited for because his arm strength has been proven. He can throw out base stealers, not as well as Molina could in his prime, obviously, but still very good there. And catcher framing is something that we kind of don't really have to worry about. Hopefully in the next couple of seasons. Hopefully that kind of changes, but defensively, I feel like he's pretty solid there, and the projections have him being a plus defender, so that's pretty good as well. And he was the team leader in WAR this past season as well, which is something that's worth noting. I feel like 2.9 sells him a little bit short, and he's going to be a lot better than that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm smashing the over here too because he had a 127 WRC plus and was a 3.2 WAR or something like that he was worth last year. Like he was a better player last year when he had to deal with the dumb being removed from catcher duties and transitioning to a new team and all this stuff. Like I'd expect him to at least be as good as he was last year, if not potentially be even better. During the second half from July 1st on, Wilson was top 5 in batting average among all hitters, second in on-base percentage, third in slugging percentage, and second in all of baseball in OPS. He was only behind Shohei Ohtani in OPS. He is a great hitter. So saying he's going to be a 112 WRC plus guy is nuts. Like Contreras is going to be awesome. And he's probably going to DH a decent amount this year too. He'll probably be like 60-40 catching duties. So you don't have to worry about the wear and tear necessarily as much on him throughout the year. So I'd be shocked if he's below 120 WRC plus and if he's not hitting 20 home runs again and just mashing at the plate. So,
yeah, I just wish the Cardinals had the first and the second guy, but we'll move on to Paul Goldschmidt.
Sorry, Wilson has to hit DH sometimes, so we can't have him. So, okay, fourth on the list. This one I feel like is going to be, I wish Sandy was here for because I'd love to hear our 3 opinions on what Goldie is going to be next year. And if you're in the chat right now, we'd love to hear what you think of Paul Goldschmidt's projections, if you think he's going to be over, under, or about the same. But Goldschmidt's projected a 267, 354, 452 slash line, about a 121 WRC plus player, 2.8 WAR player. They haven't played in 142 games, which is about 10 less than last year. And they haven't been hitting about 23 home runs, 84 RBIs. That's a good, not great season. What are you thinking, Andrew?
Yeah, I feel like this is slightly better than what he had last year, I think, but still not like MVP Goldschmidt that we saw 2 years ago. I feel like this is just about right, honestly. I'm not as high on Goldschmidt as I was before. We've seen a lot of things like he had a lot of trouble catching up to fastballs, which is something that was concerning last year because he's matched fastballs his entire career, and the bat speed is a little bit down. And I feel like he is at the age where we can see some regression. This feels like something that I would say is just about right for the projection for next year, which I know is probably not what people want to hear, but this is the reason why I want to see the Cardinals play out the season before giving Goldschmidt a big extension. I feel like this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I'll say this is about spot on too. If I would nitpick, I think he's going to be slightly better offensively. Like I think he'll hit at least 25 home runs, and he was a 122 WRC plus guy last year. So I think it's about in line. I can see him being about 125, but I don't, again, like Arenado, I'm less confident Goldschmidt has like a pop off year. But I do think I don't see like major regression coming for him, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's an all-star level player again. I just don't really see him being I don't know. I can't really see him being an MVP type player again. But again, like a 121 WRC plus player is very valuable. I think that puts him as like a top 35 hitter in all of baseball or something like that. And also, I'm pretty optimistic on a lot of these projections you'll end up seeing. So I don't want to like smash the over on too many people. So I'm going to go that's about even for what I'd say for Goldie here. So we'll see how the contract plays out. I'm with you on that, Andrew. I'd like to see them play it out. And then also the lowest they can offer him right now contract wise is like 17.5 million because of how CBA contracts work. Like they can't extend him before he hits free agency and not offer him at least 80% of what he makes right now. So I would rather wait and see what happens. So next guy, obviously new news podcast. So we gotta talk about Lars Nootbaar here. They've got him as a 2.4 WAR player with a 242, 344, 441 slash line, 114 WRC plus, 19 home runs, 60 RBIs. I am smashing the over on this. I think it's very possible he leads the team in WAR next year. He had a 118 WRC plus last year, and that's with being injured quite a bit. And kind of like every time he came back from injury, it would take him a little bit of time to kind of get into a rhythm again. Yeah, I just think he's potentially the best player on the Cardinals in 2024. Contreras easily could be, Walker could be, Nolan Arenado could be, but I think they're severely underrating him here.
Yeah, I feel like that's about right. 114 WRC plus is a little bit lower than I would have expected. But I'm high on Lars Nootbaar. We're all high on Lars Nootbaar. It's the New News podcast. That's kind of what we do. So I agree with pretty much everything you said. And it's going to take the over. Opening day, leadoff home run against Yamamoto, his buddy.
That would be wild if he did that. Not gonna lie. So we'll see. Okay, Mason Wynn. This is a really interesting one to me. So they've got him as tied with New for fifth on the team in WAR at 2.4, and they think a lot of that value comes from his defense. No surprise. 85 WRC plus, so that's about 15% below league average with a 243, 301, 374 slash line, 13 home runs in 139 games and 72 RBIs. Whoa. Okay, Mason. Probably makes sense because it's a deep lineup, so you can scrape a lot of RBIs if you play enough games. Andrew, how do you think about Mason's projection?
I was initially going to smash the under because I looked at the bottom and I saw 28 home runs, but that's for a different player, so it's like never mind. So I feel like I was like, wait, that's not right for Mason Wynn. It seems about right. 85 WRC plus means he took a step forward offensively. Obviously, can't really be much worse than what we saw last year, which is like honestly understandable from a 21-year-old prospect. And he's not here to be a bat first shortstop. We would have gone with someone else for that. I feel like this seems similar to what I would have projected Mason Wynn at for this season. It makes sense to me.
Yeah, I'll say same. Like I wouldn't be surprised if he's in the 90s or close to league average at the plate. Like something that's really interesting about Wynn is historically, if you look at him, every time he gets promoted to a new level, he really struggles. And then about 2 months into his time there, he turns it around. It's like last year at AAA, like he had the great spring AAA. He had like a sub 700 OPS, 700 OPS, and then he was like 900 plus the rest of the time down there. I don't see him doing that this year, but I could see him starting off really slow. And then by the middle of the season, late season, he's a league average, slightly above league average hitter. But because like bounce that over the season, that's probably about 85, 90 WRC plus. So I think they're pretty spot on with that. And to be a super valuable defensive player in year one, love that. So that's what you want from him. Nolan Gorman is the big bat here, 240, 317, 467, 647 would be nasty slug. 467 slug, a 112 WRC plus, if you could already hear in my voice my skepticism, 2.2 WAR. They have him hitting 28 home runs in 132 games. I think he hit more in less games last year with 80 RBIs. I'm just going to go ahead and say I'm smashing the over here. Yeah, he had 27 home runs in 60 less plate appearances than what they have him at projected. And he had a terrible month of June where his WRC plus was like 30. It was like he was one of the worst hitters in all of baseball during the month of June, but almost every other month of the year, he was a 132 or higher WRC plus guy. Gorman, when he's not like in a major funk, is a great hitter. So, and I think he's a 118 WRC plus last year, so I don't see him getting worse than that. I'm smashing the over here. He's going to hit over 30 home runs if he's healthy. He's going to get close to 100 RBIs. He's going to be a 125, 120 WRC plus hitter. Yeah, over big time.
Yep, I'm pretty much in agreement. Big fan of Nolan Gorman. I definitely don't want to trade him. That's not something that I think they're looking at all now. So that's something that's good to see. I think he hit 27 home runs last year in 119 games. That's what I'm looking at on the stat sheet right now. So 28 in 132 seems kind of low for me. He's going to be batting right between Goldschmidt and Arenado, at least to start the season. I feel like someone could be hitting a little bit higher later on in the season. We'll get to him in a little bit. But yeah, I think Nolan Gorman is the left-handed power bat we all needed. Is it the left-handed power bat that I wanted? No, that was somebody else. But I don't get to have fun sometimes, and
oh my gosh,
we'll be fine with Nolan Gorman. And hey, if you guys like Nolan Gorman, we have Gorman merch in our store, so you can check that out. Link in the bio. That's
true.
Yeah.
We also have It's Always Sunny in St. Louis. So if you want to hear a Sonny Gray projection and you're on with it, let's go. It's interesting note as we're talking about Gorman and about to be Walker here. Brandon Kiley, and I'm going to write about this Red Bird Rants here soon, but he put out something that was the Cardinals only played 10 games last year. So 6% of their games with Goldie, Nato, Contreras, Donovan, Walker, and Nootbaar all in the lineup. They played 10 games together last year. This lineup can be significantly better just for having them on the field. And let alone guys taking steps forward or bouncing back from terrible years last year. The more I look at this offense, the pitching, I'm about as optimistic as I can be on it at this point. The more I look at the position player group, the more I'm like, how is this not going to be a top? It was a top 7 offense in baseball before the trade deadline last year, and that's with the inconsistency of people playing. I would be shocked if it's not a top 5 unit. Just going to put that out there. So Jordan Walker, have him playing 152 games, which is perfect. He needs to play every day. 269, 338, 467 /line, a 120 WRC plus. So they have him projected as the best hitter on the Cardinals next year, a 2.4 WAR player because he's negative 14.8 defense. I don't see it being that bad, okay? They have him hitting 27 home runs, 84 RBIs, 10 stolen bases. That negative 14 defense is so bad. Andrew, what do you think about Jordan Walker's projection?
Well, first, I think the part of that negative there is due to the right field. I think right field has a little bit of a penalty in some of those calculations, so automatically he loses a bit just for playing right field. But Jordan Walker's been working out with Okendo and the coaching staff down at Jupiter a lot this offseason. The coaching staff is really confident that he's been making strides defensively, and he's too athletic to not be at least a league average defender at some point. Probably next year. We saw Nolan Gorman take a big step forward defensively last year. And I feel like we could see Walker taking a similar step in 2024. Is he going to be winning any Gold Gloves anytime soon? Probably not, because he's not a natural right fielder. But I'm still really excited to see what he has in store for 2024. If he elevates the ball even a little bit, he put on a lot of muscle at this offseason, as he said at winter warm-up, and I'm really excited just to see him hit the ball even harder, maybe harder than some Reds shortstop prospects that we talked about last week. But yeah, I'm really excited to see Walker. I feel like, is it crazy to say over for this? I feel like it's not.
No.
I feel like the sky's the limit for Jordan Walker. And I feel like if Paul Goldschmidt takes a step back or stays about what he was last year, we could see Jordan Walker be batting second or third instead of Paul Goldschmidt at some point. Move him down in the lineup a little bit, and we could see Jordan Walker bat third and rack up all those RBIs for us late down the stretch.
Totally agree. So I originally said over, and then I was going to say that's spot on. But then as I thought about his defensive metrics and how bad they think he's going to be, that's why I'm definitely going to say the over, because I think he's not going to be a terrible defender again. He was already it's hard to they don't really do a great job on Fangraphs or any of these of letting you see what the splits are defensively month to month. If someone knows of a great place to find that, let me know. But I remember last year I had someone helping me out with that. And if you looked in the second half, his defensive metrics got significantly better as the season went on. So he was already approaching, or some people would say he was a league average right fielder at the end. Then you give him an offseason to work on it too. I'm not going to say he's going to be even above league average. I think he's going to just be about league average, which is significantly better than what he was last year. Offensively, 120 feels like a really good number for him. I think he's going to be higher than that. I think he's going to break out. This is his Fernando Tatis Jr. year. This is his Ronald Acuna Jr. type year. I'm not saying he's that level player necessarily, but I think this is the year that as a year two player, he steps out to become one of the best players in all of baseball, especially at the plate. And so I would go over, because I think he's going to be a significantly better defender than what they're saying. And then I think he's probably 5 to 10% more WRC plus than what they're giving him. So big year for Jordan Walker coming. Very excited about that. I'd love to hear people's thoughts about Walker in the chat if you're in here now. Let's go through this is the first part-time player we're going to look at, and we've still got a couple regulars you want to check out, but Dylan Carlson, they have him. The counting stats are hard because he's not going to play 126 games unless there's a bunch of injuries. So more of the rate stats we're going to have to look at here. They have him as a 254, 335, 412 slash line, 5% above league average at the plate, a 2-WAR player if he plays enough games. About average defender, slightly above average hitter. What are your thoughts, Andrew?
I'm maybe going to take the under on Dylan Carlson, kind of just because we haven't really done much of that this episode. And I just feel like this is a significant improvement from where he was at last year. And last year he was seen as an everyday player, at least at the start of the season. And now he's kind of moved to that fourth outfielder role. And he took a big step back offensively last season. It just wasn't great for Dylan Carlson. And we haven't heard a lot about what the team thinks of him. Not many people are really taking him into their long-term plans for 2024, which leads me to believe he might not even finish the year on the team. He's probably if Victor Scott comes up and starts hitting well, he might end up just getting traded. So I'll take the under on Carlson.
Yeah, Carlson was asked at winter warm-up. I think Brennan Schaefer asked him, he's like, oh, it seems like Ollie has a lot of faith in you. Have you guys talked about your role? Even when you haven't played a lot, Ollie always spoke highly of you. And Dylan's answer was really weird. He kind of paused. I remember him kind of licking his lips a little bit, just kind of thinking, and he kind of was looking away and just yeah, I can't, I don't want to, I'll have to go back and look at the exact words, but basically he was we're figuring it out. And it did not sound like a guy who was very happy about his role right now. I don't blame him. He's being relegated to a fourth outfielder that's not going to play a ton. So That's why I'm going to go under as well. To me, the like WRC plus and stuff like that will depend on how much he plays against righties. Because if they mostly just play him against left-handed pitching, he could actually have better rate stats and look like a pretty good player, because last year was a wash, but in general, he's been like a really good hitter against left-handed pitching and below average against right-handed pitching. So if he pretty much only plays against left-handed pitching, I think he could be really good. But he's not going to play a lot. So I think it's probably under for me. But yeah. Okay. Here's one that I'm also just like, what are they doing? Brendan Donovan, 270, 362, 380, 109 WRC plus. They have him as 9% above league average, a 1.8 WAR player. They have him hitting 8 home runs.
He's a negative defender, apparently.
Which grading systems have been kind of weird on him, so I'm not shocked by that. But I'm going to give my thoughts of, he's going to smash the over. He is, 118 WRC plus guy last year, and he was 126 in his rookie year. He's not going down to 109 as he's improved as a hitter. Last year, I wrote an article about this on Redwood Rants, but I asked Donovan at winter warm-up, I was like, hey, first month of the season is pretty slow for you. Second month, or last 10 weeks of the year before he went down with his season-ending injury, he was one of the top 20 hitters in all of baseball, which people forget. I was like, hey, would you make any changes? And he said, yeah, I used to take like 88% or 86% of first pitch strikes. And he just got more aggressive. He started, because he's like, hey, I'm starting these counts down 0-1, 0-2, and basically letting the pitchers pitch what they want to me. So he got more aggressive. And he posted a 144 WRC plus over that 10-week stretch. He was incredible. He was the 12th best OBP in all of baseball, 11th best batting average. And he was a top 50 slug guy, Brendan Donovan. He's really good. So there's no way that he does not smash the over here.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of projection systems are really low on Brendan Donovan. He's definitely like, I feel like some people on like other teams with like pitching rich will like ask for Brendan Donovan and be like, that's not even enough for like our number 3 pitcher. And I don't see it. He can play like every position, and he's going to be like a really good, he might bat leadoff. Honestly, I might prefer him at leadoff over Lars Nootbaar, even though we're the Lars Nootbaar podcast. But I feel like his on-base abilities are really good. And he's just really quality, complete hitter. And I think the power numbers are going to be better. I think he hit more than 8 home runs last season, even though he didn't play the like second half of the season. So I don't know.
He hit 8 home runs from May 1st to July 29th.
Yeah, so I don't know why we're doing that. Oh, okay. Anyway,
Anyways, okay, so we'll address. We've got a bunch of like, we can maybe pull quick guys from the rest of the list that we like or don't like their projections on. But you mentioned like where he's going to bat in the lineup. I'd be curious to hear against right-handed pitching. At least left-handed pitching just doesn't happen enough. So primary lineup usually against right-handers. What you think the lineup should be? I would definitely go, at least to start the season, because I agree with you. I think Jordan Walker will bat higher by the end of the year. But I would go Brendan Donovan, and I've got another story on Redbird Rants about how he was like a top 15 hitter in baseball when he was the leadoff guy. So you bat Brendan Donovan leadoff. Paul Goldschmidt, Lars Nootbaar batting third, because I think he profiles pretty good as at batting third, and he did really well doing that last year. Nolan Arenado, Wilson Contreras, and then you go Gorman is that 6th spot as the power guy and breaks up the righties. Jordan Walker, Tommy Edman, Mason Wynn. Does that feel like the lineup, or would you move it around a little bit?
I had Nolan Gorman batting third, Arenado batting fourth, Contreras and Nootbaar in the 6th, and then Walker, Edman, Wynn. Did I forget somebody? I might have forgotten somebody.
You just didn't say Donovan to start or Goldschmidt.
Yeah, Donovan at the start. Donovan, Goldschmidt, Gorman, Arenado, Contreras, Nootbaar, Walker, Edman, Wynn.
So the reason I had Gorman going down is I think like Newt doesn't really project as a 6 hitter. He's not really a power guy. He's more of an on base guy. So I don't love that. That's toward the bottom. Like having a bunch of on-base guys at the bottom of the order isn't necessarily the best combination for skills, in my opinion. But then also I was looking, Gorman was about a league average hitter whenever they had him bat third. But pretty much any other spot in the order was when he was really good. Now, again, sometimes it's circumstantial stuff, but I think like having him as that sixth hole hitter after all those power bats is like that last guy to like potentially smash a 3-run homer with Contreras and Arenado on base. I love that idea, and having Nootbaar be that blend of power and on base percentage at third. But like Gorman's also a high OBP guy too, so you could have any of those guys batting third. So it'll be really interesting to see how they mix and match the lineup. A couple of names on here. Victor Scott, they have him stealing 46 bases if he plays 126 games, being slightly above or being 78 WRC plus, which is pretty below league average, but a good defender. I'd say it's probably about on. How do you think about that? I'd say maybe a little bit over the hitting at least. I feel like 78 is pretty low.
Yeah, 78 seems low, but like we've seen players come up. Like Mason Wynn was basically Taylor Motter last season, as much as I don't want to say that. So
sure.
We'll see what happens with Victor Scott. The defense obviously does look really good, but I don't know. 0.94 ISO. I feel like he's elevating the ball a little bit more. Talked about getting more power, so I feel like that's not entirely accurate. He's going to hit a lot of doubles and triples, hopefully, at the major league level, but I feel like it seems about right for Victor Scott, especially because we don't really know what his role is going to be on the team next year.
Yeah. Also, I saw someone in the chat say under because they think he's going to have a 90 WRC plus. They have him at 78 right now, so you probably have him at over then. Let's just quickly do some of the other bench or not necessarily starter guys. Ivan Herrera, they have him as a 93 WRC plus guy. I think it's going to be higher than that. He was elite in AAA last year, and then his small sample size at the major league level, he was really good too. So I think he's probably at least a league average hitter.
Yeah, I feel like that also kind of checks out. Makes sense to me. Do we want to go to Matt Carpenter real quick? Because some of these numbers are kind of ridiculous.
So Thomas JC, I feel like would be a little bit higher. That's the only other one I would look at. Yeah. And Alec Burleson, about league average hitter, makes sense. Yeah, they have, if you're listening right now, they have Matt Carpenter. Again, this is like what best case, well, not best case. This is what they think he could play if he got a significant role. They have him playing 82 games, slashing 214, 333, 403 with a 105 WRC plus. I'm going to hit the under. I love Matt Carpenter, but I don't think he's going to be above league average hitter.
What if he's just Yankees Matt Carpenter or 2018 Salsa Matt Carpenter?
That would be wild.
Like, what would happen if that were the case? Like, we just added a guy. Like, how would the team look? Just like throwing that out there.
I mean, I think at that point, it probably depends on how like Donovan, Gorman, and Edman are playing. But like assuming Edman's the odd man out there, you probably move Nootbaar to center. You probably move Donovan to left field, and you have Carpenter DH, I guess, like in that scenario. That sounds wild, though. Like in that scenario, you might have Lars Nootbaar as like your eighth hitter at that point if Matt Carpenter's hitting that well. So, hey, magic in a bottle. I wouldn't mind.
I mean, it happened with Pujols, but I'm not counting on it this year. Especially, they didn't even give Matt Carpenter number 13. Buddy Kennedy's wearing number 13, and Matt Carpenter's number 13.
I don't know how long that's going to stick, going to be honest. That feels really weird. But I think they just didn't update it yet. But
yeah,
we'll see. Okay, so let's move over to the pitcher projections because, I mean, you can see the other guys on here. We'd love to hear your thoughts, but that's most of the guys who should make an impact this year. Obviously, we're very optimistic on the hitting side of things and projections, which I don't think should be a surprise to anyone based on what the projections look like. Oh, man. Looking at the pitching, though, I don't know how optimistic we're going to be. What was that?
Do we want to skip Sonny Gray? Wait potentially to hold him to the end?
We can. How about we can ask Sandy what he thinks if he comes on. We could just start with him. I feel like it'd be weird if we didn't. Sonny Gray. I've gone back and forth. I have said, so if you're listening, they have him in 154 innings, 28 games started, 3.56 ERA with a 2.5 or 2.4 WAR. and about striking a little under 8 batters per 9. He's gonna outperform that projection. I think he's probably low threes, like a 3.2 ERA-ish. I bet he's like a 3-WAR player at least. I think he gets a little more strikeout than that. I'm not a big fan of how Zips does their pitching projections because Andrew and I looked at this beforehand, and they only had one starter in all of baseball having a sub-3 ERA, and the next closest that was Jacob deGrom. And then they had Shane McClanahan at like a 3.13 ERA, is the second lowest. That's just not.
I think both those guys are Tommy John surgery, and they're not going to play this year. So that's really strange why they're projected. But
and like relievers, I think they only have 5 in all of baseball with a sub-3 ERA. So I'm always kind of weary of these. They feel very, very cautious. But Sonny Gray, I will say, outperforms.
I feel like this seems about right for Sonny Gray. I know I'm going to get hated for saying that, but yeah, I don't know. Sonny Gray, I feel like we needed our number one starter to be like a swing and miss, like strikeout kind of guy. And Sonny Gray with the 7.83 projected Ks per 9 seems about right to me. It's not ideal for what I had envisioned.
I think he was 9 last year.
Yeah, he was really good last year, but I feel like he might regress a little bit. He's getting older, but I don't know. I feel like this seems about right.
Yeah, I think the reason I'll go over is I feel like at 3.56 I can see it, but that's like the worst I can see. I don't see him being worse than that. So that's where I would say I feel like my expectation is probably between a 3.10, 3.25 ERA, which he could be better than that. But then that's like, yes, that's awesome. I'm glad we got that. And if he's a 3.56, it's like, okay, I could have seen that coming. Anything below it, that's where things get really shaky. Lance Lynn, though, everyone's favorite addition of the offseason, if you ask all Cardinal fans. Led the league in home runs allowed this year. So they do have him being better than that because his home run rate is now 1.34, which isn't crazy anymore. It's not good, though. 4.46 ERA. They have him making 25 starts, 140 innings, 1.7 WAR. I think we should probably throw out the innings in this conversation for the most part. We can address it, but like a lot of these guys will say over because I think they pitch more innings than that. But Lance Lynn, I think that's about right. I think he bounces back a little bit in terms of runs allowed, but he's probably eats 180, 190 innings, but it's a mid fours guy, which something I'll point out is not all ERAs are always created equal. I'm not trying to act like Lance Lynn's a great pitcher here, but when you throw 180, 190 innings and you're a 4.46, 4.5 ERA guy, that means a lot of your starts can be going 6 innings, giving up 3 or 4 runs, and that leads to about a 4.5 ERA, which it's not like, I mean, you don't want that starting a playoff game, but over the course of regular season, the Cardinals were like 31-15 last year, and they got quality starts, and Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson gave a ton of quality starts last year. So like that's enough for the regular season, in my opinion. So if this is the projection, I think it's about right.
I feel like I'm going to take the under on Lance Lynn, like underperforming. I feel like some of the home run rates and like just the FIP last season with LA was really unsustainable. And like these are kind of similar to the numbers he put up with the Dodgers, but the peripherals were just terrible. And I know like people are saying like angry Lance Lynn pitches better, but he's getting up there in age. And I feel like he's the 5th best starter on this in this rotation. And they have him tied with Miles Mikolas and Steven Matz, but Mikolas and Matz I feel like are much more trustworthy than Lance Lynn. Also worth noting that you pointed out the game started thing. I don't think the game started for all the pitchers on this team add up to 162. I think it's like way over that, and they have Jojo Romero starting 4 games next year, which is never happening. So
yeah. Well, because if you go back to like the position players too, you have like Matt Kaperniak playing 120 games. So like, I don't think that this isn't them saying how many starts go out. This is more of like what they expect if they got a full season.
Right. But
it's like no way Team Kens makes 26 starts. That's not happening.
Under on Lance Lynn, unfortunately, he's my least favorite offseason acquisition, which. It's unfortunate because I liked him back in the day.
Well, like, what kind of ERA are you expecting from him? 4.46 isn't like low.
I feel like something in the fives is probably about what we're going to get out of him because like your fifth starter is
Okay.
never like that good, right? And I don't know, maybe I'm being negative on the pitching because we didn't get the guys I wanted, but um, I mean the rotation is fine, but I don't. I think we need to make another addition this offseason or at the deadline to be like truly competitive. But Lance Lynn doesn't really do it for me.
It's fair. Yeah, again, I'm not here to tell anyone Lance Lynn's gonna be a stud, but I think that's about a fine projection, probably about right. Miles Michaelis, though. Also the wins losses I'm not looking at on this. I just think it's such a weird number. So I'm not even gonna I'd actually think Lynn and Michaelis and Gibson could be among the team leaders in wins because they're gonna eat a lot of innings. So but anyways, Miles Michaelis, they've got him at about a 4.36 ERA, 4.61 FIP, 1.7 WAR, striking out less than 7 batters per 9 innings. Not ideal, but I'm also gonna say I agree with that projection. I can see him be 4.5. I don't think he gets above 5 ERA. Like I think he'll be just. I mean, he could, but I think he's in the mid fours probably. Definitely don't see him getting below 4 this year. See him eating a lot of innings. I feel like it's a pretty fair projection for him.
Yeah, it seems about right for Miles Michaelis. I'm really not happy that we extended him. Like, I wish we'd extend Montgomery, but that's okay. Or just not extended anybody last season. But we have Miles Michaelis on the team for another 2 more years. He's going to eat innings. Hopefully, he can bounce back a little bit. He's not going to be an all-star this year like he was 2 years ago, but that's okay. Hopefully, we'll get another guy to be ahead of him in the rotation.
True that. Okay. So Steven Matz is another one here. They only have him throwing 103 innings, which I get his durability issues last few years. So not totally shocked by the low innings projection there. Then a 3.99 ERA, 3.98 FIP, 1.7 WAR. This is going to be the one. I mean, I guess I said overperform for Sonny Gray. Steven Matz, I'm going to say overperform as well, or outperform. 3.99 seems really high for him. He was like a 3.6 ERA last year, I think. And then in his 7 starts returning to the rotation this past year, he was a sub 2 ERA. So I feel good about Steven Matz being between a 3.2 and a 3.7 ERA. So I'm going to go outperform for Matz.
Yeah, I feel like for Matt's, I've made comments about moving Matt's to the pen. I still stand by that if we were to trade for like Dylan Cease, because I feel like you can just stretch Matt's out later in the season and get him ready for the playoffs to be a number 3 starter for the playoff rotation. But I am very worried about his injury history. He got hurt in 2022 pretty early on, had a lot of issues last year as well. And just can't really seem to stay on the field. If he's healthy the entire year, gives us like 150 innings, that would be really nice. I just don't see that happening based on what we've seen the last 2 years. But when he is on the mound, he is pretty effective. Even in 2022, when he was hurt, his peripherals looked really good. His FIP was like close to what we saw last year as well. It's very, very consistent for him. So I feel like over if he's healthy, but also I would prefer it if say he were in the pen for a little bit.
Yeah, I could see that, and it makes sense because you're not going to move Michaelis, Gibson, or Lynn to the bullpen. But I do think by the time postseason comes around, I would love for it to be Sonny Gray, a starter they acquire, and Steven Matz as the 3 guys. I think Matz is easily their second best starter right now in terms of talents. So I get why he'd move to the bullpen if they acquired a Dylan Cease or something like that. But I'm not. That's not he shouldn't be in the bullpen unless they acquire 2 more starters. Like he's better than Gibson, Michaelis, and Lynn. But obviously there's a lot of projections for the young guys here. I think we can probably skip over a lot of that. I think it's probably kind of a wash with like Libby and McGreevy, Rom, Thomas. It's kind of hard to know how many of them are actually going to pitch. So I think we could probably move to the bullpen here. And if you scroll down to 22, Giovanni, or 21, Jojo Romero, or we could do Zach Thompson first. He's at 19 on here. They have him at a 4.45 ERA, 93 innings, about 8.4 strikeouts per 9. They have him starting about half the games he pitches, and pitching out of the bullpen, so swingman type stuff. I would say better than a 4.45. I think he's probably in the like low fours, especially if he's starting a lot of games. I think that's when he starts to give up more runs. But I think he's a quality 5 potentially. But then, especially if he's getting a lot of innings out of the bullpen, I think that ERA is going to go lower than 4.5. So I like Zach Thompson there. What do you think?
Yeah, I feel like Zach Thompson, he can pitch pretty well as a swingman, and definitely coming out of the rotation for like a swingman option when we need a spot start if someone goes down. That should be pretty good. But I'd like to see Zach Thompson more out of the bullpen. That's something that I just have preferred ever since he came up. He pitched really well out of the bullpen at his debut. And then last season out of the bullpen, I think was a lot more effective than starting. And he won't eat as many innings, so it'll strain the bullpen a little bit more than some of the other starters that we have on the roster right now. But I feel like I'll go for the over for this one as well. I feel like he'll do better than that, even as a swingman. Out of the pen, he'll be significantly better than that.
Yeah, I see that as well. Okay, so let's do JoJo here next. 3.68 ERA. 58 innings. How about we lump the 3 relievers together real quick? I'll give my 3, and then you can give your 3 takes. So starting with JoJo, 3.68. I think he's better than that. Giovanni, I think that's probably about spot on. Actually, I'll go JoJo and Gio. I'll say they're both probably about 3.68, 3.65 ERA guys. Them, Kittredge, and Helsley make up the back end of that rotation. I don't think we've missed Kittredge on here yet, so we'll get to him at some point. But then the guy that I really think outperforms, Ryan Helsley, 3.46 is way too high for an ERA for him. Again, Fangraphs tends to be pretty pretty conservative with the ERA projections, but I see him being a 2.5 or lower ERA guy. High strikeouts, getting a lot of saves, being that back end of a bullpen guy. But I think they end up being a really good trio. I'd be interested what your thoughts are on each of them individually, though, in which.
Yeah, so for Jojo Romero, I'll say that's about right. Maybe take the over on that. Not fully sure if he's going to be able to hold it down in the bullpen for another year. He might be kind of like an Alex Reyes type guy who's a really good reliever for one season and then kind of falls flat later on. I don't want to be too negative, but some of the peripherals with Romero aren't the greatest. Ryan Helsley definitely is going to overperform that. We've seen him at his best. And if he's healthy, definitely over the 3.46 that we have projected for him. He has all-star potential, fringe all-star potential. He will get in if say he's just really, really good in the first half. And as for Giovanni Gallegos, I feel like, I don't know. He's one of my least favorite relievers on this team. I don't like giving the ball to him in high leverage because he can blow up at any given time. And if he blows up, it's going to be really, really bad. So you need to try to limit those outings from him. Probably going to take the under on Gallegos. So under for Gallegos, about right for Romero, and over for Helsley.
Yeah, I could see that. Someone asked if they missed the Gibson projection. Yeah, we already talked about him. I think I said spot on. Would you say?
Did we do the Gibson projection? Because I don't think I gave mine, but mine is I feel like slightly over that because 4.51 ERA, 1.6 WAR being the worst pitcher on the rotation. I feel like he is much better than Lance Lynn. He also give really quality innings, and I feel like Cal Gibson will overperform these projections. He's the between Lynn and Gibson. I like that signing a lot more, and I feel like he'll be pretty serviceable, low 4s, maybe high 3s if he's really good. But he's better than people are saying, I think.
And you're right, we did skip him. I think in my head we talked about him because I kind of talked about him in the Lynn conversation. But yeah, I think Gibson, that's spot on. Innings eater, mid-4s ERA. So that's about him. Let's group a couple more relievers together. Nick Robertson. They got him in the Tyler O'Neill trade. 3.79 ERA, 52 innings. And then if you scroll down a little bit, Andre Palante, is a 4.25 ERA, and then Kittredge 3.2 or 3.98. I'll say spot on for Robertson, spot on for Palante, and then I will go under, or he'll outperform for Kittredge. Kittredge was an all-star in 2021, I think it was, and has like 100th percentile chase rate. So one of like literally the best, or one of the best at getting people to chase outside the zone. I think he's going to be really good for the Cardinals this year. I think that's probably like a low 3s ERA probably is what I'm thinking. And then Nick Robertson, I think mid to high 3s makes a lot of sense. And Palante, he's been doing a lot of work this offseason, so I can see him really bouncing back. But the way they use him, I can see a low 4 ERA.
Yeah, I feel like Nick Robertson about right, maybe slightly under. I don't know what to expect out of him. Just he hasn't put together a full major league season yet, but like I could see him being pretty good. Palante, I feel like I'm taking the over. I've been writing about him recently as a potential bounce back candidate, and I feel like he's been working really hard. He has a new like death ball, which is like a fast curveball, kind of like fast, and then it like breaks right at the end. And that's really exciting. I feel like if that clicks for him, he'll be much better this year and a lot closer to what we saw in 2022. And with Kittredge, same. I feel like he has the all-star potential. 3.98 seems a little bit selling him short, so I'll go with over on Kittredge as well.
I think that's probably all the guys on here we'd want to address. So if we want to go to the next page, there's a couple more relievers that could play a role this year. I think would be worth. I mean, Packy Not and Gordon Graceffa could, but I think I don't know. They're not necessarily expected to, but Riley O'Brien is a really interesting one. 4.50. Again, it's really hard to know with these guys what they're going to do. So Zeninga again 4.40. There's one other guy on here. I thought, John King 4.26. Wilkin Rodriguez 4.31. I won't give like a specific like projection on any of those guys. I'll just say one or two of those guys ends up being staples in the bullpen, like are guys that carve out a role, whether it's O'Brien, King, Rodriguez, Zuninga, Granello even could. I've heard people talk about Logan Sawyer, Matt Savanson. But if I had to bet, I think Riley O'Brien and then maybe John King end up being like maybe not the high leverage guys, but guys that make the bullpen and are consistent toward the end of the year. And I think one of the underrated things about the Cardinals bullpen this year is that if they add one more guy to the back end, it gets a lot better, which is really nice. But they've already, like last year, their end of the, I guess you have Jordan Hicks in there, but to begin the season, it was really just Helsley and Gallegos that were kind of the guys back there. Now you've got Helsley, Gallegos, JoJo, and Kittredge expected to be high leverage guys. And then also you go down, it was like Chris Stratton, Drew Verhagen, and then it fell off even more where it was like, who are your middle inning guys? I think they have so many options that could fill in there where I think it might take a few months to figure out what the mix is. But I think by July, August, and especially after the deadline, they can add another arm or two if they need to. I think you see this as like a really strong group where you don't really feel like it felt like you only had one or two relievers you could rely on at any time last year. And then anyone else who went in there, it was like, please don't blow up. I think now it's like you have like 3 or 4, you hope to have 3 or 4 guys that you rely on and you feel really good about. And you have other guys that you expect to get outs. I kept that very open-ended, but like when you look at those names and you think of like the bullpen depth, do you think it's better than last year, worse than last year? Same.
I think it's much better than last year. I don't know if I think we do need another like veteran innings leaders presence like Chris Stratton. And I feel like we're going to go get that in the coming days. We might be back very soon to talk about that. But yeah, I feel like there's a lot more options than before. Romero could be a really good option. I think, what was I saying? Kittredge could be another really good option. And then the depth options like John King probably will eat a lot of innings for us this offseason or this season, man. And then, yeah, we could see like any number of these guys could break out and be all-stars. Like this, just bullpen arms in general are very volatile, but I feel like what we've got right now is a really good group.
Yeah. I think that's part of the reason why I'm not like, I agree. And I'd be annoyed if they don't add one more arm because of how often they've talked about it, but they already added Kittredge, which I thought was a big win. And then again, like there's really not many it's like, I don't want to say there's no such thing as a stable reliever, but they really don't grow on trees. So like when Ottavino or some of these guys sign and people are like, oh, the Cardinals missed out on a surefire seventh inning guy. It's like, maybe, or he could blow up and be terrible. Like that's just kind of how relievers go. So like I would like them to add one more veteran to the mix, because what if Kittredge isn't good? Like I'd rather have them have a lot of options that could be that guy, assuming that if you have enough options, they'll have a guy that fills that role. Unless you're going to spend 20 plus million a year on Josh Hader, which even that feels really risky to me. So I'm kind of out on stuff like that. So those are our pitching projections. We went over the hitters already. I think we should round this out with what Fangraphs thinks the Cardinals will be win-wise this year. So as of right now, again, there's a lot of players that haven't signed yet. I don't think it's hard to find on Fangraphs itself, but I have the standings right here in case we need it. So you guys might be just to listen for this one. I'll give the Cardinals and then I'll say what they rank in all of baseball. So obviously Blake Snell, Jordan Montgomery, a lot of guys haven't signed yet. There's some trades that could happen, so these standings will change. But right now they have the Cardinals projected 85 wins, so an 85-77 record, which would be the best record in the National League Central. I think the Cubs are like 80 wins or 79 wins they have projected right now. And it would be tied for the sixth best record in all of baseball with the Mariners, the Rays, and the Twins. So they only have the Braves, Dodgers, Astros, Yankees, and Blue Jays being better. It's also tied with the Phillies. I'm not really too concerned. We can talk about record-wise in all of baseball. I'm more so concerned about the number here. I think 85 is a pretty good number. If I had to put a number today, and I know we're going to do stuff later, I'd probably say high 80s rather than 85. But I think anywhere between 83 and 89 makes a lot of sense for this team right now. And I'd say that's good enough to win the NL Central. And it's one of the better records in the National League, probably like fourth best, maybe fifth. What about you, Andrew? Oh, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that seems about right for the Cardinals in 2024. I feel like 85. I feel like I had them at like 87, 88 wins this season. I think that's kind of similar to what I had them at last year. I was a lot lower on the team than I was in 2022. I mean, I guess I knew, but I didn't know like they were going to tank that badly. But so I feel like that seems about right. I feel like if we added the trade deadline, that'll build a couple more wins in.
True.
It's kind of something that Fangraphs hasn't taken into account.
Yeah.
Obviously, if we're terrible again, we talked about that a couple weeks ago, and like we're going to win like 75 games again. But I feel like we'll be contending in the NL Central as long as we just don't have a disastrous start to the season like we did last year. 85 seems about right. As for best, like top five in the all of MLB, that
top six, tied for sixth, for sixth.
That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I feel like there's a lot of teams that I would have higher. Did they say the Blue Jays were higher than us?
Yeah, they had the Blue Jays, Astros, Yankees, Dodgers, and Braves higher. And then they were tied with like the Phillies and like five other teams for the sixth best record.
Fangraphs win projections are very conservative. I don't think they have a single 100-win team this year.
And they usually don't.
There's gonna be, the Dodgers are not gonna win like, what was it, 91 games? That's crazy. That's so low for them.
Yeah.
And I think they had the Braves at like 98, but that still seems a little bit low. So I mean, I don't put too much stock in those kinds of projections because I feel like they're just naturally conservative that way. But it seems about right for the Cardinals. That seems not too bad.
Yeah, and I also, when I was looking at this too, I'm like, with all the hitters, I think that will be better than what they think. And then pitching, I was mostly like, that's pretty right. There's a couple guys I think would be worse, a couple guys I thought would be better. That's where I was like, okay, I think you already, from their projections, would bake in a few more wins. That puts you like 86, 87, 88. And then also, again, if the Cardinals are in contention, they usually at least add a couple pieces at the deadline. Are they significant? It's always debatable. Jordan Montgomery was pretty big. But like Jose Quintanas of the world aren't necessarily huge pieces, but they like help boost the win totals. So I could, like, as the roster stands today, it's a mid to high 80s win team, in my opinion, probably more like mid 80s, 85, 86, 87. But if they add, which you would think if they're contending, they would, I could see the path toward a low 90s win season, but it wouldn't be like low 90s and you're really excited about their playoff chances. It's like, okay, they like figured out how to win enough games in the regular season, but with how it's currently constructed, the pitching, the rotation's just not good enough unless the offense just is otherworldly in the postseason, or they get these like random elite starts from Steven Matz and Kyle Gibson, which I don't see happening. So yeah, I think Fangraphs is pretty good on that one. So overall, I'm the projections this year are really interesting. We will see kind of what happens. I've seen some win totals thrown in there. 84 and 78 makes sense to me too. As far as the podcast goes, we recorded today, so there's no episode tomorrow. So enjoy the AFC and NFC championships. Those should be fun games. And then Wednesday, where we've rescheduled with Robbie, that was my bad. We just had some scheduling issue stuff where didn't realize I wasn't very good at telling time zone. So we'll have him next time. And Robbie, you may have heard of him before. He's a big YouTube creator, which he just does some really good stuff over there, talking about off-season stuff and player moves, all that kind of stuff. But then he's really, really in tune with the Red Sox. And so we're going to be talking a lot about Chaim Bloom with him and getting his thoughts on what Bloom could bring to the Cardinals, some of his history with the Red Sox, and what that means potentially for the Cardinals moving forward. And then also, obviously, the Cardinals got some Red Sox this past offseason and gave them Tyler O'Neill. So we'll talk a lot about that circumstance as well. But anything you want to talk about, Andrew, or preview on the back end of this? Or
Yeah, no, we got a lot of exciting guests still in the works. We'll be previewing the Cubs and the Pirates as soon as Cody Bellinger signs. So we're just waiting on that. So that might never happen. But
we'll give our preview for it in July when he signs with the Giants.
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll see. Either that or spring training comes first. But we'll see what happens with that. We had some pretty bad takes on last year's edition of the Pirates Cubs.
That wasn't me.
No, that was not you. It was also not me. I didn't say any of that. So Sandy's not here to defend himself, and his team just lost. So sorry about that. But yeah, hit the subscribe. Stay up to date with what we're doing. Spring training is starting up in just a couple of weeks. So we're really excited to give you guys coverage of the 2024 season, which hopefully is a lot better than the 2023 season.
Yes, I'm definitely excited for baseball to begin soon. So should be a better season. How much better? We'll debate that and we'll see how it goes through. But until Wednesday, thanks for watching, guys. Again, if you're watching already, subscribe, like it. It helps the channel out a ton. And we're really excited about the content coming up soon. We got Robbie on Wednesday, more previews coming, more awesome guests coming. Should be a fun spring. So thanks for joining us. See you guys Wednesday.